Coming up on this edition of the Die Hard Den podcast, Shawnee J and I have a special conversation on race in the NFL and what's going on in the country with Erik Schlitt of LionsWire.com, Jeremy Reisman of PrideOfDetroit.com, and the one and only Micheal Jones from OMG It's Lions Talk podcast. So sit back for a good conversation about what's going on in this country. Watch out. Here comes that roar. What up, though? This is Kurt Steele, and welcome to a very special edition of the Die Hard Den podcast. And as always, I'm with my man, Shawnee J.
What's up, good people?
Hey, welcome to the show. And we have some very special guests. We'd like to welcome them, and we're going to have them say hello individually. First up, we have my man, Micheal Jones of the OMG It's Lions Talk.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? Happy
All right.
to be here, and yeah, it's time to talk about things a little bit.
All right, yeah. Next up, we have my man Jeremy Reisman of PrideOfDetroit.com.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Kurt. Happy to be here.
All right, and last but certainly not least, my man Erik Schlitt coming over from Lions Wire and Detroit Lions Breakdown podcast.
Hey, Kurt. Nice to talk to you again, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem. I thank you guys for all coming on and being part of this very necessary conversation. We're going to get right into it. The things that happen in this country are the reason why we're here recently, the recent events. We're going to touch on some touchy situations and some touching material. And first thing is that one of the things that really jumpstart this whole conversation that we had this week and how everything's affecting the league with as far as race is concerned is the comments by one Drew Brees. What do you think? What did you think of his initial comments about when he went on Yahoo Finance and said that he was definitely didn't support anyone disrespecting the flag? Mike?
And I think actually Drew Brees, I really think he didn't mean those things the way they came out. I think he, his grandfather served in the military. I think when he took a knee a few years ago during the anthem, I think his family gave him a little bit of bad talk for that. And I think he just tried to make up for that this time. I just think he did it at a wrong time.
All right. Erik, what you got?
Well, for me, I think with Drees, it's a matter of education and the fact that he was looking at things from his perspective and not looking at them more globally. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what the expression that we've seen across the world has been about. It's about getting people to look outside of themselves and be a little bit more empathetic and altruistic and looking at other people's perspective. And initially, I think when he made those comments, mm-hmm. he was making them as just thinking more like with, I don't want to say with blinders on, but he was just only looking at it from his perspective. And I think once he was able to look beyond that and he saw the backlash that he got from teammates and other people around the league, mm-hmm. I think it opened his perspective a little bit. And you've seen a couple of comments from him after the fact that mm-hmm. have spoken to that. And if he has truly taken that to heart and made those changes with this perspective, then kudos to him. I think there's more to be said and more for him to prove down the road.
Right.
But I think it was just a matter of just him not being educated on the topic.
Right. Jeremy, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Erik just said. The one thing I'll add is that I was certainly disappointed when Drew Brees first came out and said what he did, because he's had 2-3 years since the Kaepernick protest to learn that the protests were never about the flag and never about disrespecting the troops. And even this week, I mean, that came in the middle of the week when he had already probably met with a bunch of his team. And so while I'm glad he potentially has made some changes, and maybe that speaks to how much this movement is already working. We've already heard Roger Goodell apologize for how they acted a few years ago, and maybe that is true progress that we're making. But it's sad that it's taken this long for guys like Drew Brees.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the Roger Goodell statement later. Shotty J, what you got?
I think Drew was kind of hypocritical. Like you already mentioned, he took a knee himself a few years ago during the protest. He was teammates, which showed solidarity, and he stuck it for his teammates when it was obviously lying about the New Orleans Bonnygate scandal a few years ago. And now he's gonna get mad about this. I think it's kind of a contradiction, but I'm glad he came out and apologized. And let me ask you guys to piggyback on that. Since Roger Goodell admitted that they made a mistake about Kaepernick protest, what do them back in the NFL in 2020?
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I was want to touch on that. We're gonna address the Kaepernick thing here shortly. Just giving my perspective as a veteran, I served 26 years in the military, and given from my perspective as a African American male, I really took offense to his comments just because of the fact that I know the history of the military. I know that my grandfather fought in World War II, and when he came back, he didn't have the opportunities that I had. He didn't get a hero's welcome like I did when I came back from Afghanistan. What he got was he couldn't wear his uniform in public because he was in danger of getting attacked. He couldn't sit at a lunch counter when he came back from the South Pacific, and my grandfather was a master sergeant. He was a person who recovered casualties from the battlefield, and he wasn't able to honor the individuals that he was bringing back because he was felt as less than, So, and you can't box everyone in as far as you can say that you're disrespecting the troops, because we fight to defend the Constitution of the United States, which means that we're protecting people's right to freedom of speech in the Bill of Rights, which is in the Constitution. So those things definitely struck a chord with me when he said them. And I think that really, like you all said, it took some of his teammates to really get at him, and some of the backlash that he got to really change his tune. Now, one thing I will say that it's going to take some work for him to regain his trust in that locker room. Even though some of those teammates came out and supporting him, it's still going to be some guys in that locker room until he has some action behind those words that may give him the side eye, and it'd be rightfully so, because of the fact that he's going to have to earn their trust back because he broke at that bond with them making those comments. Though getting to that, his apology, do you guys think that his apology was genuine? We'll go with Shawnee J first.
Do I think it's genuine? It's hard to say, but I give him credit for at least, being man enough to say an apology. Who knows if it's genuine or not? At least he said it.
What you got, Jeremy?
I'd say after his kind of first apology, it didn't really ring true for me, where he said, I'm sorry with the way my words were interpreted. And that's not really an apology for what you said. That's an apology for other people. And that's not what an apology is. But I will say, when I think it was Friday night, he sent something out to Trump saying, no, that this wasn't about disrespecting the flag. This wasn't about that to me is a true apology. I mean, going up against Trump, a guy who he's shared a box in a suite at a football game with, a guy that he's clearly friendly with, and to put, a guy on blast, put the president on blast on some sort of level, took a little bit of courage. And yeah, I think that showed that he was a little more serious, a little more sincere about this than his first initial apology looked.
Yeah. What you got, Erik?
Yeah, I agree with that. I felt like the first apology was something that was necessary, but it sounded like it was put together by not just him, by like his PR team or whoever. And that makes sense for an initial, but the second one did sound more true, more heartfelt, more off the cuff, and more direct. And I think that one rang more sincere to me than the initial one. I think the initial one was more to save face. The second one was more, okay, now we're stepping in the right direction.
Right. And what you got there, my man, Mike, before I share my thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I I think the first one was kind of like I have to say something to get everybody kind of off my back. And I believe the second one, when he directly referenced Trump, and and things got to change. I think that came more from the heart than the first.
Right. I have to agree with everything you guys are saying. And one thing that did strike a chord for me, Jeremy, it was the fact that he said, well, I'm sorry for my way my words were perceived.
Right.
With that, you're just saying what you meant what you said. You just said, you're just saying sorry for the way that if you took it the wrong way. And that's not a true apology. And one thing that really struck me as, like I've heard someone say, kind of corny, was the actual stock picture of the black and the white hands shaking each other. I was like giving each other dap. I was like, come on, man. You could have posted a picture of you and your teammates, but to kind of do that generic type of picture was kind of, I was like, you got to do better than that, my man. And I will say one thing, and like I said, it's going to take a lot of work for him. Now, what he said, did it erase everything he did with New Orleans, especially coming from Hurricane Katrina and everything like that? No, but does he get a pass? Definitely not. I think maybe he's working in the right direction. Like I said, he's still going to take some work to get to where he needs to be with his team there in New Orleans, and to get that locker room really earn their trust again. Now, with that being said, switching over to Roger Goodell. Now, I will say this: the video that Michael Thomas and some of those other NFL stars, including really the face of the league, Patrick Mahomes, really struck a chord with the league. And actually, it was organized with some of the audiovisual individuals from the league who helped produce that video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you definitely can Google the "What If I Was George Floyd" video by some of the NFL players. What did you think about that initial video from the players taking a hard stance about what was going on in the world today, Erik?
Well, I think it sent a clear message that and I want to bring up something Duran Harmon said to us yesterday, was that when he watched the video of George Floyd, it was very easy for him to picture himself in that exact same situation as George Floyd. And then he could picture his father and his cousins and his son. And I think that's the message that the video was trying to send, was that this could be any of us. It's not just this person situation. It's something that what if it happened to me? And I share this common bond with this man who was just brutally murdered. And that's, I guess, what it was, Duran Harmon's words from earlier in the day that resonated with me, that I thought that was the main message I took away from it.
Yeah. Mike, what you got?
Yeah, I liked it, man. I think it gave Roger Goodell a wake up call. Like, what you guys did to Kaepernick was not right, and I think it also it was happy for me because players finally stood up.
Right, I got you, Shawnee J.
Admittedly, I didn't see the video. I didn't get a chance to see the video, but I can pretty much just picture what's going on. I'm glad the players are taking a stance. They're trying to be like Jim Brown. Remember the great Jim Brown? He was a activist. He used to be played during the civil rights era. Excuse me. He risked his career for standing up for what's right. And I'm glad to see some of these players take a stand. I mean, they don't have to say nothing. They got it made. They got it comfortable, but they're putting their careers on the risk, on the line. Excuse me. And I'm glad they are.
All right, Jeremy, what do you think about that video?
I thought it was incredibly powerful. I mean, especially after a week of just kind of like these soft statements from corporations, from NFL teams putting out, just saying like we stand against racism, and just like not really addressing the issue, not mentioning police brutality, not saying the words Black Lives Matter. This was something that was head on. It was direct. It was strong. We saw basically the biggest stars in the NFL all take part in that video. And it was something that clearly struck a chord with a lot of people, and it's understandably so, because it was direct, it was firm, it was clear in its message, and it didn't, shy away from some tough language that needed to be said.
Right. Me, myself, I identify with the video. I am a veteran. I'm African-American male, but I still don't like police behind me. I get nervous with police behind me because I know that a simple traffic stop can end my life. And I have a son who has autism, and my son is nonverbal. And I fear for his life as well, because of the fact that if something happens and I get pulled over and, my son has a meltdown, and he's acting out, he can get killed. His life can get ended because he's having a meltdown, and someone takes that as an act of aggression and hurts my son or kills my son. So, I really, internalized that video and, really looked at it as through the eyes of the player and looked at it as through the eyes of the public. Because we look at so many people. I mean, you look at, Tamir Rice and Eric Gardner and, Sandra Bland and, Breonna Taylor and all these individuals. And Lord knows, I know us as a Lions family have, heard about, Ahmaud Arbery down in Georgia. Those individuals were living their life, and something tragic happened to them where they didn't make it home. It'd be a traffic stop or a quote unquote, for in the case of Arbery, I would say a fake citizen's arrest, who someone just took it upon themselves to take someone's life because of the fact that they just thought that they were saw someone who they claimed to have been committing a crime. Which we'll get into that a little bit later. Now, Roger Goodell's video, we're going to get into that. Roger Goodell made a video. He came out. He's saying that the NFL is against racism and against systematic racism and needs to be more active as NFL and that Black Lives Matter. Did that video ring true to you? And if so, what was missing for you in that video? And we'll start with my man, Mike. You got me, Mike?
Oh yeah, sorry y'all. Y'all kind of broke up for a minute. My bad.
Okay.
I didn't watch the video. I'm gonna have to go back and check that video out. So I really can't speak too much on that video. So
On the Goodell video? Okay. All right. Shawnee J, did you see that video?
No, I didn't see the video either. But I heard some comments. That was the part where he said that was a mistake what he did to Kaepernick a few years ago. Was that part of it?
Well, they didn't speak his name directly. But at the end of the video, he said that we see you guys and Black Lives Matter. Getting to Jeremy, what did you think of the video?
I was surprised by it, pleasantly surprised, I would say. The exact words he used were, "We, the NFL, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier," which is a clear admission of guilt for how they handled the protests back in 2016 and 2017. But as you mentioned, did not mention Colin Kaepernick, did not really express a call to action either. He did not. He did say, we're going to try to encourage protests or demonstrations as we move forward, but he stopped also short of saying you can now kneel at the anthem. So I think it's a great first step for the NFL and for Roger Goodell, but we still have to wait to see action, right? We still need to see him either allow players to demonstrate or donate a large sum to certain causes or whatever. But I do think you don't see very often a commissioner of any league admit guilt in the way that Goodell did. So I think it's a great first step, but we still have a long ways to go with the NFL and the way they treat issues like this.
All right. Before we get to Erik, you are watching or listening to the Die Hard Den podcast. We're having a special conversation about race in the NFL. So, Erik, what did you think about the commissioner's video?
Yeah, I think the words that stood out the most to me were the admittance of being wrong. You don't see not just commissioners around the league, but this is a billion-dollar corporation. You don't often see billion-dollar corporations say, "Okay, our fault." You know what I mean? Like, but I also view this as similar to Drew Brees' first statement. This is a initial statement that was probably he had some guidance in making it. But where do we go? Like Jeremy said, where do we go from here? What's his next statement going to say? Is it going to be more specific, more heartfelt? What actions are they going to take beyond that? Are they going to get into specifics? Are they going to address kneeling? Are they going to address Kaepernick? It's a fine first statement, and
Right.
and I know people are going that people wanted more out of it, I guess. But at the end of the day, this is a step in the right direction. Even if it's a baby step in the right direction, this is something that 4 years ago would never have happened, right? And now we're seeing it. And maybe it was pressure from the player video, and maybe it was pressure from the events that have been happening, or maybe they're just becoming more self-aware. But regardless of what got them to that video, it's a step. It's a step towards progress. Now, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next. But I was happy to see it. I was like Jeremy. I was surprised to see it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the next statement is.
Right. Now watching the video myself, like Jeremy said, one obvious omission was to mention Colin Kaepernick by name. I think that's one thing that the commissioner really missed out on. I don't know if the league is going to come back later and have him in some kind of role with the league, or have him as far as a press conference or whatever they're going to have with Colin Kaepernick. I think it would just be right for the league to reach out to him and have him join this fight, because they admitted that they were wrong, but they didn't mention him by name. And that's a very big omission. I think you need to really correct that as far as that's concerned with Colin Kaepernick, because this man has, he's continued to fight even though he lost his livelihood. I mean, he's made some concessions as far as making not concessions. He's made some money with Nike, with his endorsement with Nike, selling his jersey, selling his shoes. And he's had some money making, and he still continues to donate his money to the causes that he really believes for, and that he really was originally taking a knee for. Now we're going to kind of switch gears for a second and kind of address the what's going on in the nation right now. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on the video of George Floyd's last moments on Earth. Hold on here. Shawnee J, you up first. What did you think of the George Floyd video?
Now that I saw, and that I thought was terrible. I mean, the man, it's worse than the Rodney King video, obviously, because a man died in this case. It was horrible. He was telling you couldn't breathe. I mean, you had a big man, that cop at least weighed 210 pounds, and to put that much pressure on someone's neck, what do you expect? You're trying to kill him. And the Minnesota Police Department said, we don't train officers to restrain suspects like that. So that was well out of line. And the video is sickening. We literally witnessed a murder on that video. Almost 9 minutes for a big man. He may not be big as Refrigerator Perry, but it's big enough. Put somebody's knee on your neck, of course you're going to kill them. They're going to suffer from suffocation or asphyxiation, or whatever you want to call it, strangulation almost. It was terrible. I'm glad that they charged him, but I don't agree with other things that are going on, because of that. People are taking advantage of the situation. I guess we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll get with that later. I'm going to go next. Seeing that video, and I will say this, in the African American community, and just overall, just on the world, one person who, if you have a a issue or something going on with you, one person most likely you're going to call for is your mother. You're going to call for your mother because she's the person who's going to come and save you. I know, I'm a self-claimed mom was born myself. My mom was my hero, may she rest in peace. But to hear a 46-year-old man call for his mother, call for his mama, that he can't breathe, call for someone to call for their mama like that, that broke, just the situation itself broke my heart. But to hear him call for his mama, I'm like, and to see that cop's face where he was emotionless as he held his knee on that man's neck. No one should ever, black, white, ever, but that's definitely an issue in the black community where you have these police officers who police communities of color different than they police their own communities. Was something that wasn't warranted. Jeremy, what did you think of the initial video when you saw? It wasn't the whole 9-minute video, but the initial video of George Floyd that was shared on social media.
Yeah, I'm almost a little ashamed to say that I haven't been able to finish watching it. It's that hard for me, and I've tried multiple times to just sit and watch, but like you said, just the lack of human compassion in that video, the lack of understanding that someone is crying out for help, that they're literally dying under their knee, and they don't stop and think about it. They don't stop and hear his words that he can't breathe, that he's calling out for his mother, and it's just something that I can't bring myself to watch sometimes. And I know I need to force myself. I know I need to see it straight faced and come to terms with a reality that exists not only in this nation, but across the world. And it's very hard for me to see something like that and believe it. And to be clear, I absolutely believe that all of this is happening. It's just hard to face it. It's hard to look at it in the face and recognize it. And, one day I'm going to get there. It's so raw footage of hate, of pure unadulterated hate. And it's really hard. It's just hard to watch it. Yeah. I don't know another way to say it. It's just very, very hard for me to look that in the face.
I understand. Mike, what you got?
Yeah, that was a tough video. Man, I can't put it in words, but today actually, when I was at I went to the protest, and we were asked to go on our knees for 8 minutes and 41 seconds, I believe. That was, the officer had his knee in George Floyd's neck, and my knee hurt. Even though I had on shorts and I kind of had them underneath my knee hurt. And I had to switch knees, okay? And then I eventually sat on my butt, and I'm like, man, how hard did he have to have his knee in his neck for him to be able to stand that long on his knee? And that like brain, it's just hard to think about, man. It disgusts me every time I think about that video, man. It's tough, man. It's tough.
So I understand. All right, Erik, what do you think?
Well, for me, the biggest thing that when I watched it was I was just confused. I was waiting for something to happen. I was waiting for him to get up. I was waiting for one of the other officers to step in and say, okay, I hear what he's saying and I need to take action. And the officers didn't do that. And he didn't move. And and I was confused. I didn't understand why there was a lack of action from other people around there. And the people that were videoing it were calling for action, and their words were, they went unheard. And it was startling to me. It was shocking to me to just see no one else step in when the people that were in power of that situation weren't. And I was shocked and confused, and it just goes against like my nature to not. I guess what I tried to do is I tried to empathize with the people, or try to not empathize. I tried to like put myself in the shoes of the people who were videoing, or put my shoes in the situation of the different officers and try and see what they were doing, or put my mind in the situation of Mr. Floyd. And I just couldn't. I couldn't figure out why there was just nothing but him sitting there for so long, and it just didn't make sense to me, and it still doesn't make sense to me. And it's a terrible, terrible tragedy. I watched it once. That's all. I couldn't watch it again. That's all. But I was the whole time. I was like, human nature, human decency says something has to happen. Someone has to step in, and no one did, and it was shameful.
Right. Now, I will say this: his daughter made a statement to ask her about, his daughter. The daughter said, "My dad changed the world," and that's sad that it took her dad to die senselessly for the world to change. Because if you look at what's going on in the country with all these protests, it's not just in the United States; it's all over the world. It's global, where people of color are and people that are not people of color are standing up for human decency and human rights, of how people of color are treated throughout the world, not just in the United States. Because the problem of systemic racism is a big problem in the United States. However, racism against people of color are all over the world. It's, you go to different areas of the world, and people that are darker pigment skin are treated poorly. South America, Germany, it's just rampant around the world. And I think that this is a big case for change. And I think that the world's going to be different. I don't think the world can go back. And I think one of the things, and you guys I'll give you guys your comments on this. I think COVID-19 was and is a blessing and a curse, because it's a curse because of people are dying and stuff like that. But it's a blessing in this situation because people had to pay attention, because they couldn't go anywhere. So they had to pay attention to this video. I don't think if COVID-19 would have happened, I don't think this would have been a bigger story across the globe, because people were kind of forced to kind of watch this. They didn't have any place to go. You're kind of, stuck in your house. So that made this situation even on a bigger stage. What do you think about that, my man, Mike?
Yeah, I think, man, you hit the nail on the head. Everybody has seen this. Like, I don't think there's any person living in America that hasn't seen some part of the video. And I think this, you said it, man, that COVID-19 is horrible as a virus, as a man. My sister's cousin actually died in Detroit from it, but at the end of the day, man, it kept us all in the house. We were all able to see it, and I think that's why you see the protests and the marches, and you see a lot of Caucasian people protesting and marching, because even they're sick of it, man, and it just touches everybody.
Right. Johnny J?
Yeah, man. I agree with what you and Mike is saying. This COVID-19, the world's really changed in 2020. All that's been going on, the tragic and untimely death of American hero Kobe Bryant, and then in COVID-19. I mean, that really changed the world. A small virus that came out of Wuhan, China, spread like wildfire over the world, shut the economies down, shut countries down, where nobody can go to work. And it took us one event like this, the George Floyd situation, it spread just like wildfire, just like what just COVID did over in the world, It still had to happen. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. But like I said, the world will never be the same again. And hopefully this will implement change, because you see even policemen across the country taking knees and joining the protesters. hopefully this is the impetus of some positive come out of it. This is going to be another tragedy that, goes the way of time. Hopefully this will bring on positive change.
Erik, my man, what you got?
Yeah, I do think that there is a connection between the two, and as you guys have all said, the COVID situation is obviously terrible on its own, but the circumstances around it created an environment in which something like this was able to happen, where a change or a movement towards change was able to happen, because everything is on pause. And so you have all of the media focused on this event and focused on what's happening in the world right now. And, that I'm a sports journalist, but I haven't written an article that wasn't about this in the last 7 days. It's because everything I've written has been about this. And maybe, like Mike said, maybe if the COVID wasn't going on, then there would be like camps and then we would maybe be distracted a little bit. And I think it created this environment where we've almost been forced to pay attention, because there's the focus of all these other things around us was gone, and it's probably a good thing that we were forced to look at this situation, because if we weren't, then how long does this continue? How long is it another several years before an issue like this gets brought up again, like in between now and the Kaepernick protests? So it's an unfortunate, obviously both situations are very difficult and hard situations, but out of those hard situations are typically when you see change happen, and hopefully that's the direction that this country's headed in.
Right. What are your thoughts, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I feel like I can add to everything which you all have pretty much seemingly covered is just looking at social media. Like, if we were out eating at restaurants, Instagram would probably be filled with food and beers and whatever, or baseball highlights. NBA playoffs would be happening right now. Like, that's what would be covering social media. But you look on Twitter, you look on Instagram, you look on Facebook, everything is about this. And it like everyone has said, it's unfortunate how we got to this isolated situation. But if something good can come from it, that's one positive way to look at this overall situation. And yeah, I mean, the social media is the way that we communicate these days, and it's all this, and yeah, it's because there's a shutdown nationwide, worldwide.
Right. Well, it's in the African American community. I mean, to caveat on what you said, I mean, this isn't an isolated incident. I mean, I have to say that, when you have situations like, Breonna Taylor, and, the list goes on and on. I mean, you going back over the years, you look at, I mean, even going back to the 60s, Martin Luther King was assassinated he was one of the most, and people, that's one thing that really gets me now, is people want to quote Dr. King. Dr. King was one of the most hated people in America when he was alive. I mean, he was being surveilled by the CIA and the FBI because he was so hated by the government in the country. So, I mean, these aren't isolated incidents. They go on. I just think that the COVID-19 put a shine of light on it more than they would, and with you, like you said, Jeremy, more than what it would have been if we were just going about our day-to-day tasks, where everybody's going to work, or going hanging out at the bar, or going to a game, or that's just really made it so much more where people can concentrate on it more, where nothing's really going on but this. And because the world is shut down. I mean, sports are starting to come back now, and places are starting to open, but this happened in a situation where everything was pretty much still shut down. Now let's switch gears to the Lions. And you guys, Erik, you covered the Duron Harmon presser the other day. What was your biggest takeaway from that press conference with Harmon?
I wish I could say just one thing. I wish I could. There was just so many things about him that he shared that was heartfelt, open, and his willingness to share. It was very impactful. He talked for 27 minutes or something like that, and the video is on YouTube on the Lions feed. Both Jeremy and I wrote essentially the same thing about it. We could pull little snippets from the piece, but the whole piece itself was so powerful that we both said, watch it all, please, just watch it all and just listen to what he's saying. I take notes during the press conferences, and typically I get about half or 3/4 of a page per player. With Harmon, I had 3 pages, and it just kept going because he was the information that he was telling us from his point of view. It was very impactful, from having to have hard conversations with his 8-year-old son to what is he doing professionally and using his platform, and how are the Lions themselves addressing the what's going on right now. How are they going to address the issue moving forward? There was just so many incredible things that he brought up that I would highly recommend people going and watching that video.
I've watched the video myself. I sat down and took half an hour yesterday and sat down and watched that video. Hey, everyone, thank you for listening in to the Die Hard Den podcast. We're having a special conversation about race in the NFL. Mike, are you familiar with the Duron Harmon press conference?
I am a little bit. I didn't catch all of it, but I did. I watched little snippets of it, and I'm just glad that he said something, and that he came out and it was an emotional. It was real. You know, that's what is the biggest part. I think it's actually inspired Matt Patricia to take little steps to come out. I think it was yesterday, and say the things that he said. And I think that's big for a free agent to come in to Detroit and just make your feelings be known off rip. Like there's no confusion how he feels. And I think that's important.
All right. Jeremy, how was your take on the press conference yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it was the most educational, I think, press conference I've listened to in my 3-4 years of being on the beat. And I think just him telling his personal stories are the things that really resonated with me. The story of him waiting for his mom and sister at a Walmart as a 17-year-old and getting dragged, his interaction with a cop, which was just him being in a fire lane. He was parked in a fire lane. It somehow escalated to him being ripped out of a car. And I think that's something that we need to also pay attention to. It's not just, police killing people. It's disrespect. It's injuring. I mean, it's all of that. Like, you don't have to be killed to be abused by the cops. And it's happening with everyone. We heard him. I think this really gave us kind of an insight to the kind of meetings that the Lions were having this week. They basically put football aside and we're just talking about this. And we heard from a couple players saying, like, everyone had a story like that. Everyone has a story like that. And that's something, when you hear the specifics and you hear it from the person who underwent police abuse, it's much more powerful. And Harmon had 3 or 4 stories that he shared during that 27 minutes. And it just kind of, it reminds you how pervasive it is in these people's lives. And even if it's something as simple as getting pulled over because you don't look like you belong in the town, or, being the first question from the cop being, whose car is this? These are things. I've had plenty of interactions with cops. Never have I had anything similar to this, not even close. I had one situation in which I saw I was pulled over by a cop twice in 2 days. One time I was loitering. I was about the same age as Harmon when he got pulled out of his car. I was 17 years old. We were going to TP a house. Me and 4 of my friends were in a neighborhood. We were about to TP a house. Someone spotted us. We sprinted. We panicked. And I just can't help but think, like, if I was an African American in a different neighborhood, that could have been a much, much, much different interaction. Instead, it was just like, what are you guys doing? All right, get out of here. That's it. Like, that was the entire interaction. And it was the same, like, the guy had just seen me 24 hours ago too. I was a little rascal. I deserved probably more punishment than that. I certainly didn't deserve to be dragged out of my car, and no one does. And so I think that was a great reminder that things are different, and it's for everybody. This isn't just about individuals who get murdered. This is about everybody.
All right. Shawnee J?
I saw the video on my favorite site besides ours, Pride Detroit. I love Pride Detroit, Jeremy. I didn't get a chance to watch it all, but I get the point. Once again, I'm glad these athletes are speaking out. They're not afraid of risking or losing their careers as so many have, their livelihoods. I'm glad he spoke out and shared a painful experience, and my hat's off to him. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you. All right. Again, thank you for listening in and watching this special edition of the Die Hard Den podcast as we talk about race in the NFL and how it's affecting the country right now. One thing I definitely did watch that video, and it was very touching that to hear him share those things, and you just hear of it far too often where, like Jeremy said, whose car is this? I got pulled over when I was a young kid, speeding crazy. First thing I want to ask, is whose car is this? It's my mom's car, and I'm driving something nice. Like my mom had a Cadillac and I was speeding and I got caught. Luckily, I just got a warning. It could have been worse. But, you get those things where, I've had, interactions, not say with cops, but I've had, people call me, the N word and things of that nature. And you just don't want to, no one should have to deal with, things of that nature, but it's been going on far too long in our country and across the world. But you hear these athletes tell their stories, it's definitely something that's touching. Now, let's move the conversation forward. Mike, how can we move the conversation forward, and how can individuals like Erik and Jeremy help push the conversation forward of what we need to do to fight racism in this country, and then actually in the NFL?
Just make it more of a thing to do daily, and just don't let this go by with the moment. I know right now, America and the world's kind of focused on this, but don't let it go. Don't let it go by. Don't let a couple of weeks go by and we all forget, or a month go by and we forget, and it's not mentioned. Just keep it relevant, because it'll always be relevant. It's something that's continuously going on in America, and I don't think we're going to see it change anytime soon. As in just a total makeover. And just as long as you keep it fresh and keep refreshing it and keep touching on it, that's important, man. And I just think that'll help out a lot. Right. A lot of people listen to you guys and follow you guys. So,
right. Shawnee J?
Well, I think I agree with Mike. I think we just can't let this go. We need to keep the pressure on, keep reporting it. Some things tend to die down with time. As time goes on, people forget. People have short memories. They forget. But we need to keep people aware. Keep doing what we're doing, reporting it. When we see things, report it, and keep the pressure up. And I think that could bring forth positive change.
Right. Now, I left you two gentlemen last on this one because I have been following your Twitter feeds, right? And I've seen some of the backlash you've gotten from your own community by posting stories about racial injustice. And what are you guys going to do, or what do you think you can do to keep pushing this conversation forward? I'll start with you, Jeremy.
I mean, there's a couple things. The first one is don't let those people deter you. I don't care if I lose followers. I don't care if Pride of Detroit loses viewership, readership. I don't even get paid by clicks, so I don't care about clicks as much as some people think I do. I don't care. I'm going to continue to speak. We've been raising money over at Pride of Detroit all week for Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights camp. One thing that I haven't been preaching that I should be is to not just consider a one-time donation, but a monthly donation. So like you said, this isn't just a one-time deal and then, next month when we're on to the next thing, we forget about it. Monthly donations. Think about that. Think about supporting local Black businesses. And yeah, with the backlash, I'm fine losing friends over it too. One thing that Frank Ragnow said, which I thought was really interesting, is that he feels like part of his role in this is to, talk back to people, if just in the interactions. We saw the text exchange with Jake Fromm, making sure that sort of stuff isn't acceptable when you're behind, even when you're behind a wall of secrecy, even if it's just a text exchange, even if it's just you two hanging out with your buddy at the bar and he says something, you speak back on that. You don't let those sort of things slide, because those are the things that fester and eventually become something bigger. So if I lose followers, I don't care. I don't even like bringing up followers. I've never checked my follower account. I don't care. I'm going to continue to call people out for bad things that they say. And I know some of them are just trolls on Twitter, but sometimes it's important to expose those people. Not with the kind of anger that some people go at them at, but with an understanding, with the kind of compassion that allows them the space to grow. Because if you just come back at some people with anger, they're just going to get more angry. They're not going to even consider changing. So I think it's important to reach out to people that disagree with you, that might have some sort of backlash with what you say, and not fire back at them necessarily, but say, hey, this is why I believe what I believe. This is why I'm going to continue to why I do what I do, and try to reach out in a way that won't turn them away immediately. Because if we just continue to bicker at each other, nothing's going to get accomplished. We need to reach across the aisle. We need to come to some sort of agreement, because we can't do this on our own. We would love to, but there needs to be some sort of agreement. There needs to be some sort of unity. Are we going to get 100% unity? Of course not. But the more people that we can, reach out in a compassionate way, I think the more we can accomplish our future goals.
All right. Erik?
Yeah, I think you can echo a lot of what Jeremy said there for me as well. The biggest things that I think keep this in the forefront is, again, going back to what a couple of the players said yesterday. Duron Harmon said, we need to make sure that we allocate time, and making sure, and the team is going to make sure that they allocate time, and we need to do the same thing. As professionals, we need to make sure that we're allocating time in order to look at the issues. We need to make sure that we're talking to players and seeing how things are going with them, and we need to be able to report on that as the season and the months and go on. So professionally, from that's one of the ways we can grow professionally. Now, from a personal standpoint, I want to echo what Jeremy said. It was quoting Frank Ragnow saying, being able to talk when you have a platform is important, but it's also important when you hold people accountable when you're not using your platform, and teaching your kids the right way to do something, and being able to impact the younger generation as positively as you can. That's a huge way. I'm a firm believer that you build change through youth, right? And I think that you need to keep that focus there. Now, I know Jeremy isn't as big a follower. He doesn't care about his followers as much. I'm more egotistical. I care about mine a little bit more. I'm just kidding. But I've lost followers over the last few days. Absolutely. And that's fine. And I've had some people say some pretty nasty stuff to me, and stuff that I would have normally just been like, well, I don't need it, I'll just block them. But over the last week, I've tried not to block people. I've tried to say, I'm willing to leave the door open. And if they change their perspective, or if they want to come back to me and they want to say something constructive, not just, throw swear words out at me, right? Then I have to be open to that. And I want to be open to that. And so I'm trying not to block people. I'm trying to stay interactive, but I'm also trying to understand when people are trying to get the best of me and when people are actually looking for my point of view. If I can continue to try and keep a message of education out there, then I think that's important, because I really think that one of the most confusing things going on right now is language, right? When people hear words like white privilege, I don't think they understand what that means. I think, again, going back to Frank Ragnow, he said, white privilege doesn't mean you've lived a privileged life. It means that you are afforded privileges that by the color of your skin that other people aren't, just in your everyday life. And I think that's something that people don't understand. And I still get people in my mentions asking me why kneeling for the flag is okay. And protesting and taking a knee during the flag is okay, when that's not what it's about. Like, there's just a confusion, and there's a lack of knowledge out there. And when I can put my perspective, or I can help try and promote other people's perspective on knowledge and language, I think that's how I can make change. That's what I've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to continue to do. And I want to make sure that I do. I want to make sure I allocate time for that moving forward.
Right. And before we kind of close out, I want to, if you're not aware, one thing I want to do is, I'm a military person. I was served 26 years in the Army. And one thing that just came out a little bit ago today is that the United States Marine Corps just banned Confederate flags on all their installations. You're not allowed to display a Confederate flag on the installation, be it a bumper sticker, a flag, any type of representation of the Confederate flag will be removed from all United States Marine Corps installations. And kudos to the Marine Corps for doing that. First of all, I really don't think that's the Confederate flag should be displayed. It is a flag of traitors who broke off from the United States to try to become their own country. And I live probably about 15 minutes from probably one of the largest displays of a Confederate flag here in North Carolina. And for them to come out and say that was a big, big step in the right direction, because people around this country, I never really got to that Southern pride thing. That is a form of hate and display of definitely of a group of people who want to keep people of color oppressed. So shout out again to the United States Marine Corps. Now it is time for us to kind of close anything out. So I'm going to start with my co-host, Shawnee J. Any parting comments, my man?
Yes, people. What happened to George Floyd was a tragedy, and that should have happened. I'm sorry it did. I feel for his family. But I just want to say quickly, Curtis, I still disagree. All these people are taking advantage of the situation just to go out and loot and start fires and steal. That has nothing to do with George Floyd. That does no good. That brings no good to the situation. That doesn't make things better. You destroy some beautiful cities like Atlanta and LA, and people who had nothing to do with the George Floyd situation were just upset as you were. And I asked for these rioters, please stop, because that doesn't do anything to help the situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Mike?
Yeah. Wow. I'd just like to say that I hope that all of this that just came out changes people for the better. I hope it happens in a quicker fashion than it probably will happen. And I just hope the NFL finally acknowledges what Colin Kaepernick tried to do 3-4 years ago, and they right their wrongs and amend that because it's important. Because he was doing this years ago, a couple years ago, and it wasn't accepted, and everybody was scared to stand up and to say something. I really hope that they fix that and get that squared away.
All right, thank you. Erik, any parting shots?
I think the big thing that I would encourage people to do is just to listen. And I don't mean like just hear the words. I mean, actually listen to what people are saying. And if you listen and you empathize and you try to educate yourself on why situations are happening, I think you'll have a better understanding of that, of what's happening and why people make decisions that they are. And that's the big thing that I just want to make sure I just stress, and I keep trying to stress out to people, is just listen, take the time, and if you don't have time to watch a whole 27-minute Harmon video, but listen to just 3 minutes of it. Just take that time, and it'll change you. It will.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt, for the opportunity to be here to talk, and like Erik said, probably more importantly, just listen. You guys have some interesting perspectives that I think are valuable to all Lions fans, all people. And yeah, I was gonna kind of say something similar to Erik there. The one thing I would add is just don't react right away. I feel like internet discourse has made it so that our listening capacity is about 5 seconds before you want to speak again. Take the time to digest things. Take the time. You don't need to respond to every tweet that you disagree with. Take the time, maybe do some research on your own, and just try to understand, because you wouldn't interact with the person that way face to face. Try to treat your Twitter account, try to treat your Instagram comment sections like you would in real life, and just sit there, consider, be passionate, be compassionate, I should say. Name calling, any sort of that stuff is not helping anyone. And so just listen, just digest, and try to understand and have a little bit of compassion.
Right. Now, that's why I wore my shirt today. I have a One Pride shirt on, because we're all One Pride as Lions fans and as Lions podcasters. I would say definitely listen to each other, hear each other, be compassionate, be empathetic, and understand where other people are coming from. And for those who want to be on the right side of history, will definitely change for the better. I thank my man Jeremy Reisman, Erik Schlitt of Lions Wire, Jeremy definitely of Pride of Detroit, my man Mike of OMG It's Lions Talk, and my man Shawnee J of right here at the Die Hard Den podcast. And for everyone on this panel, we thank you for listening in or watching us on this special episode of the Die Hard Den podcast. This is Kurt Steele, and we are out.